So Jin Wu gets jumped on the battlefield and dies in front of everybody, like heart pierced and everything. And the King of Frost froze him in ice for good measure, but this is when he meets the original Shadow Monarch in a spiritual limbo. Now he introduces himself as the Shadow Lord, but also says he's the history of Jin Wu's strife, the evidence of his struggle and the reward for his suffering. He's his death, his repose, and his greatest fear, and that ultimately he is Jin Wu. So he asks, why did it have to be me? He says, I'll show you our beginning and end and your beginning. So again, they were confident they killed him. Then a bunch of shadow auras start shooting everywhere. And they can clearly see the black heart forming in his chest. They're both trying to run up and stop the resurrection. And somebody pulls up and kicks the shit out of them both, sends them crashing into this building. And it's his fucking dad defending him with the fate of the world on the line. He says, from this point forward, no one's touching this child. The Shadow Monarch says light and darkness were there when there was nothing in the world. And there's the Absolute One who split the light and created disciples of God. He split the darkness to make the 8 rulers. Now, these lords tried to destroy the world according to a primordial command. The disciples were those who sought to maintain the world. These opposing forces just killed each other endlessly. One day, one of the fragments of light, who was sick of the endless war, went to plead to the Absolute One, bowing before him and asking for the power to vanquish their enemies. The Absolute One just looked and didn't answer. They figured the Absolute One was sacrificing them as a source of amusement, that he had no intentions of the battle ending. Now everybody worshipped him and praised him, and all of them would prove their devotion with their lives and blood. They had all kept his commands until now. And if you didn't keep them, you were promised not to return alive, but the number of lives lost far exceeded the number of survivors. Despite keeping the commands, nothing was left in the end but death. This war would not end as long as the Absolute One existed. So his soldiers unsheathed their swords to end the meaningless war, form a revolt against their god. And that right there is who I used to be. He was the only disciple that stood up against the rest of them. So he did not want to revolt against their god. His army was significantly smaller, so the rest of the disciples wiped out his forces completely, and he thought it was the end. But when I opened my eyes in the darkness, I realized the Absolute One hid a power inside of me. The shadowy auras like coming out of his face, and while surrounded by the corpses of his comrade, for the first time ever, arise. Bro's not just regular with it the way his shadows are extending out. He's using them to pull out the spears from his body, and he led this new army to the front line. However, by the time he got moving to defend the Absolute One, the rest of the disciples had already killed him. And they called themselves the new gods, assuming positions of rulers, and they used the tools left by the Absolute One to hunt down the monarchs. That's why the King of Giants got captured and the balance of power collapsed. But the rest of the monarchs knew how serious this was and linked up with him, form an alliance against the ruler. And from then on, I just continued the long-lasting battle, as neither a fragment of brilliant light nor an emissary of God, but as the Shadow Monarch. The longer the battle raged, the stronger I became because of my ability. But when I combined my forces with the army of destruction led by the King of Berserk Dragon, both the monarchs and rulers came to fear me. 2 monarchs tried to backstab me after combining forces. Because of that, the Shadow Army was almost completely destroyed. The strength that was too powerful had brought me betrayal. And while the Beast Monarch fled after abandoning his soldiers, the King of Demons, the Monarch of White Flames, Baron, had to pay the ultimate price. But just before I could kill him, new rulers come busting out the sky. So he quickly grabs Baron and just conceals him inside his shadows as they all fly down on him, surrounding him. Then they start dropping to their knees and bow before him as a collective, saying, please, it's time for you to forgive us, O greatest fragment of brilliant light. And though they had plenty of power to kill me, they chose to pursue peace. And it was the least respect they could have showed me. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? Have you not harmed my liege with your swords and spears? But he says, hey, he was our king too, and this just pisses him off. He snatches him up by the face and says that's precisely why your crimes are even more heinous. He says you should understand more than anyone how we felt rebelling against him. We simply wanted to end this war. We simply wanted to end this war, but he doesn't want to hear it. Just pierce my heart with your spears and get this shit over with. This is the end you so desperately sought. We're finally gonna be the winners. Come on, kill me. But please, find it in your heart to forgive us. But he's like, fuck that, kill me now. Please quell your anger, O greatest fragment of brilliant light. And they all pledge their allegiance to it. Literally all of them come out the sky and bow to him. He says he was overwhelmed. He couldn't come up with a solution. I decided to hide myself for the sake of revenge. I was gonna attack the Beast Monarch after I recovered. While I was hiding, the monarchs who lost most of their power had been defeated by the rulers. When I reappeared before them, the Dragon King did not permit any form of fighting, knowing that it was time for everyone to get their strength back. He allowed me to join his forces. We went searching for a new world to build up our new army. Jin Wu's like, wait, Earth? He says, correct. To the humans, the appearance of monarchs must have been crazy, as their annihilation was inevitable, like cities were going up in flames. This reminds him of the Demon Castle, like, is this gonna happen in the future? But he's like, nah, this already happened in the past. And if the monarchs are the ones causing destruction, then the rulers are supposed to defend the world and maintain balance. So the rulers snuffed them out and sent their soldiers, so everything came to an end. The rulers wanted to correct all the damage that the monarchs had done. They used some of the forbidden tools of the Absolute One, including this cup of reincarnation, something capable of turning back time by 10 years. They had everything they needed to save the world, but the current Earth was too weak to fight against the monarchs. It had no magical energy, so they wouldn't stand a chance. Whether the monarchs or rulers won, everything would have been destroyed. The rulers made a drastic decision. If they can't save everyone, they want to at least save some people to survive. And Jin Wu figures it out. That's how hunters were created. The rulers were making humans capable of surviving the collisions between the two forces. The rulers wanted humans to survive no matter what. Could the world really operate like that if everybody died but the people who are hunters? He's like, wait, this world has already been destroyed countless times? He says, yeah, because the rulers aren't able to go against the flow of time. They're able to perceive the change in the flow of time created by the cup of reincarnation. While the rulers tried to fix their mistakes several times, the monarchs were constantly having to change their plan until the cup of reincarnation couldn't be used anymore. He's like, wait, there was a limit to it? He says, yeah, there is no infinite power. It's like how the Absolute One got taken out by his creations. There's a limit to every power. So then how did they kill their creator? He says it's no different from humans' creations killing them. They utilized the rulers' methods to create a plan of their own. Similar to how the rulers lent powers to humans so they can kill magical beasts, they strengthen the world. The monarchs can borrow a human body to descend into the world and bring their armies earlier than the rulers expect, and use the magical energy that was spread everywhere to turn the earth into a trap. And he figures it out that they were trying to destroy the rulers' armies so they couldn't come help humanity. Now for the monarchs to descend into the human world, they need a vessel strong enough to withstand their power. But him and the dragon monarch were too powerful that they couldn't find any, until a powerful mage came up to them with a proposal, saying he could find a suitable human, saying that he would help them but only in exchange for an imperishable body. But unfortunately, no living thing could become a vessel to contain death, my power. The architect searched high and low, sensing magical power, trying to find just the right person with a great mentality, someone whose strengths would meet his power. In the midst of his scavenging, he found someone who bested the system, someone who rewrote the rules of his game and exceeded his expectations. You, who was always weak, always close to death, and yet evaded death time and time again. I watched you firsthand, and even with the architect telling me no, I picked you. So I'ma say it once more. I am the record of your struggles, the evidence of your resistance, and the reward of your pain. This makes Jin Wu think about his whole life. Even though I exceeded the architect's expectations, I must not have been able to handle your power. The architect let him use tools to adjust to his strength. He says games and recreation. By using those to fuel your amusement, the architect's system, which used my power, transformed your body level by level to match mine. So there really was a purpose to it being like a game. But wait a minute, why did you betray the architect? He was screaming about the monarchs not letting this shit slide. So why'd you switch up on him? After the ruler's apology and betrayal of the monarchs, I pondered on which side I should stand on, and I made a decision. And I just wanted it to be that way. The time spent with you was so blissful, perhaps I just didn't want to lose you. I became you and you became me. No matter who becomes the owner of this body, it will not be strange, because you and me are already one. So here, I'll offer you a choice. You could stay in this domain of death and enjoy the eternal dreams you've created for yourself. You could choose to rest, or you can go back to reality and face all your adversaries. Oh wait, you said you made your decision, but you didn't stand with the leaders. But why did you escape to the other world with the monarchs, even though your will to fight the rulers had long disappeared? He says that place just didn't offer a spot for him. And he says my answer is the same. This is not a place where I should be. Falling back to when he said hunters belong in dungeons, and he turns into the chairman, smiling. Now, hey, is this the last time I'm gonna see you? He says, I'll return, but you are gonna live an imperishable life. So us crossing paths is pretty unlikely, because with death, your power has become absolute. Now he says the way to go back, he cuts him off and says, I know, because I am you. Wait, was the chairman like him? This whole moment, like, was the chairman was him? Am I tripping? I might be tripping, I'm not sure. Then as he stares off into this sunset, the king resurrects himself. That shit is cold.